Hello friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Muhammad and today we're going to be discussing something really interesting, which is RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ is basically a message broker and it's going to allow us to send messages between a producer and a consumer. We're going to be discussing all of these terminologies and how we can implement them in the video, so don't worry about it. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. It will really help the channel. As well, if you'd like to support me and get access to the source code, please consider supporting me on Patreon, or you can buy me a coffee. Now, with that being said, grab your cup of coffee and let's get started. So first things first, let's see what's on the agenda for today. First, we're going to be discussing what is RabbitMQ, some of the terminology that we're going to be following, some of the principles that we can actually implement within RabbitMQ, and then once all of that's done, we're going to see the ingredients that we're going to be needing in order for us to actually build our application, and then we're going to jump into coding. So, first of all, what is RabbitMQ? RabbitMQ, in essence, it's a message broker. And what does this mean? It means that it accepts messages and it sends them. As simple as that. We can think about it as a post office. It means that we hand them a letter and the post office is going to be responsible for it to actually deliver to the right address. RabbitMQ follows the same concept. All we need to do is hand them a letter based on the configuration that we give it. It will actually be responsible to delivering that letter to wherever it needs to go. It's very simple. It's called the message broker, and basically, it's in summary, it is responsible for sending a message from point A to point B based on some configuration that we give it. As simple as that. And we can think of point A and point B as basically two systems: System A, System B, System 1, System 2, so on and so forth. And we can see how we can actually do communications between all of these services utilizing the RabbitMQ framework. So, now that we can actually understand what is RabbitMQ, let us understand some of the terminology. So in essence, whoever is sending a message is basically a publisher. So for example, from my side, if I am sending a message to someone, I am a publisher. If I'm an application sending a message to a different application, that application is a publisher. So once a message wants to be sent by a single application, that application is called a publisher. And once it's being sent, it basically arrives to a queue. And basically a queue there means we can think about it as like at a sorting office where basically all of the messages arrive to and basically live there until they are delivered. So once a message left a publisher, it arrived to a queue. And we can see here that as a publisher, I'm sending a message, and basically whenever I send a message, it's go to this queue. And basically here we can see that we have numbers on them. So it starts with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What does this mean? This means that basically the messages are coming in as FIFO. So first in, first out. So the first message is being sent, the first message is being delivered. So here we can see that it's actually utilizing an order of somehow in order for it to deliver the message. So we cannot skip the order here. It needs to actually follow that order of the messages. So let's say I send a message, another service send a message, another service would send a message. Because I sent the message at the first place, my message will have to arrive first. There is no way out of this. It's called a FIFO. First in, first out. And that's how the messages are being sent, and this is how the messages are being propagated to the different systems. And basically, whenever a publisher sends a message, depending on the order they have sent the message, it's basically depending on that order, it will be delivered. So, the first one, as we said, a publisher who's responsible for sending a message. Then the messages will live in a queue, and that queue basically it will be responsible where all of the messages will live until they are delivered, and they're basically in a certain order depending on the order of the delivery of those messages, or basically the send date. And lastly, we have the consumer. The consumer are basically whoever is actually waiting for this message. So for example, let's say I'm trying to send a message from the first system to system 2, system A to system B, and basically once the message receives system B, it's going to be responsible for sending emails, for example. So system A, which is going to be the user registration, for example, is going to be the publisher. It's going to send the message through RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ is going to be responsible to deliver this message to system B. Once system B is, for example, the email service, once system B actually receives that message, it's going to be basically responsible to do any processing with it. In that example, is to sending an email. And basically system B is called the consumer because it's actually consuming that message. And here we can see the full base terminology for a RabbitMQ application, or basically implementation. We have the publisher, who's going to be responsible for sending the message. We have the queue where all of the messages line up based on the order they were added, which is called a FIFO, first in, first out. And basically we have the consumer at the end, which is going to be basically responsible for actually doing something with that message that we have sent. And basically here we can see that this diagram gives it a very full overview about how we can actually implement RabbitMQ, and we can actually how we can implement a publisher consumer as well with the messages. So now that we have covered the main terminology, let's check some of the implementation that we can actually do within RabbitMQ. And basically the first one, which is the easiest one, is this one that we see currently here, which is going to be sending a message from point A to point B, as simple as that. And this is basically called the hello word. We're basically sending a message from one point to another, as simple as that. We don't have multiple systems, we don't have multiple receivers. All we have is one sender and one receiver, and we're sending this information from one point to another. So the second one, publish and subscribers. So that's a bit different. So the first one is basically what we did is we are sending the information from one point to another, although we have different consumers. Publish and subscribers mean that what in essence what we're doing is, I'm a consumer, I'm only interested in receiving, for example, messages regarding email. I am a different consumer, and that consumer, for example, is only interested in hearing about orders. So the publisher, as myself, I'm basically sending messages to whoever, to the queues. I'm sending messages, and basically those services are only interested in listening to certain types of messages. So those consumers or those services are only going to be listening in to those types. So the service who's responsible for emails is only going to be waiting to listen about messages for emails. The service who's going to be responsible for orders is only going to be waiting to receive messages regarding orders. So although I'm a publisher and I'm sending two messages, those services or those consumers will not accept all the messages. They're only gonna accept the messages that matter to them. And the way they actually tell the RabbitMQ or the service that they are actually interested is by subscribing to them. And basically what they're gonna be doing is they're gonna be subscribing to that topic. So once the server is booting up, it says, okay, listen to me, RabbitMQ. All I want from you is just the messages regarding emails. And that RabbitMQ say, okay, you're gonna be handling the email messages. Another service will be running, and once it starts up, it tells RabbitMQ, okay, all I'm interested in messages regarding orders. And that's it. So RabbitMQ, okay, will know service 1 is only gonna be responsible for orders, service 2 is only gonna be responsible for emails. And basically because these services have subscribed, RabbitMQ will be able to actually direct those messages to this service. We don't have to do anything else. RabbitMQ will be responsible to do those. So here we can see that the pub sub message we're only basically sending based on the subscription of the consumers. So here we can see how we have a different type, which is called routing. And basically routings mean here we are only sending messages to the queues selectively. And this is very important. So we can see here that we have type. And based on this graph, we can see that we have different types of messages we're sending. We're sending, for example, error, info, and warning. And this is for logs. So we can say that I have only one consumer who's only responsible, or whose own main responsibility is handling logs. And that's it. So here we are being very selective of what we are sending. We're not subscribing, we're basically checking the type of a message, and based on that type we are actually processing that message to a certain queue, or basically to a certain consumer. And basically based on that type we are actually processing. So we can see that we have, for example, here one consumer who's accepting everything. It doesn't really matter. On the other hand, we have another consumer, which is consumer 1. It's only taking the error types, and that's how we can, for example, see those different messages being sent based on the routing. So RPC is very interesting as well. So what does RPC mean here? Well, basically the request reply pattern. So what does this mean? So let's say I'm a producer and I produce a certain message. When I send this a message to the queue. It's gonna receive, and it's gonna be received by the consumer, and then the consumer in its hand is gonna just send me like, okay, I have received this message in case there's any extra action that I need to do, and it's gonna send it back to me. So we can see here that we have the request and the reply. So in all of the other ones, once the message has been sent from the producer, we don't really care about the outcome. On the other hand, in the RPC, which is the request reply pattern, I do actually care about the reply, and I actually care about what is the response that I'm actually expecting in order for me to continue. So that's why here we can see that the request reply actually it's a two-way system. So I send and I'm expecting to receive. On the other hand, all of the other ones, I just send, I don't really expect anything in return. And now let's talk about the ingredients that we're going to be needing for today. So as we can see here, we need some kind of an editor, and it could be Visual Studio Code, it could be Rider, it could be anything that we want and we are comfortable with. We also need the .NET SDK. You can download it. You can go to Google and type .NET SDK, and you can download the latest version. This should work with any recent .NET version. And we need Docker in order for us to run RabbitMQ locally. And basically this is all we're going to be needing. We need three things, which is going to be the code editor, we're going to be needing the .NET SDK, and we're going to be needing the Docker to be running locally. As simple as that. So now that we have finished all of this, now it's time for us to jump into the code and actually start experimenting with the Hello World concept, which is basically sending a message from a producer to a consumer through RabbitMQ. So let's get into it. So here what I have is basically, I have my terminal, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating an application, and basically this application is going to be a type of API. So I'm going to be creating an API here, and basically my API is going to be the producer who's going to be responsible for sending the message through RabbitMQ. And once that message is sent, I'm going to have a console application on the other hand, which is going to be the consumer, which is going to be responsible for actually receiving that message from RabbitMQ and actually processing with it. And for us to make it a bit interesting, we're going to be mimicking an airline portal, Formula One Airlines. And basically we're going to be seeing what happens once we actually try to book a ticket. And basically we're going to sending this message. And basically once we book a ticket, we're going to be sending it to a service or a consumer, which is called booking processing, and it's going to be responsible for generating a ticket for us. And this is going to be a simple implementation when sending a message from a producer to a consumer with .NET. So the first thing that I need to do here is I want to create my application. And for me to do that, as we said, we're going to be creating a producer and a consumer. And here we can see that we have two applications. So we have the producer and the consumer. So it's good for us to create a solution where we put these two together. So let's start with that. So we're going to put .NET new SLN, which stands for solution. And here what we're going to be doing is we're going to give it a name. I'm just going to call it Formula Airline. Oops. And now I have a SLN. So if I tap here, you can see that I have an SLN file. So now I'm going to be creating my web API. I'm going to put .NET new web API. I'm going to give it a name. And this name will be, let's say, Formula Airline.api. So now that I have my API up and running, or basically created, let me create also, let me add my API to my solution. And basically what I need to do is I need to link my API with a solution. And this is very simple. All I need to, let me check if this is fine. Yeah, my picture is not holding anything. So all I can, let me move this a bit up. All I can do here is put .NET SLN, and it was called Formula Airline. And I'm gonna say add Formula Airline .api, and that's it. And we can see right now that it has been linked. And if I do a .NET build from here, both of them should be building, my API should be building successfully. Perfect. So this is my producer. What I'm gonna be doing right now, I'm gonna be also creating my consumer. So it's gonna be .NET new console, and I'm gonna give it a name. I'm gonna call it airline, Formula Airline, and let's say booking processing, or let's say ticket processing, it's better, so it generates a ticket for us. We call it ticket processing. And now we can see we have my ad console. So what I'm gonna be doing right now is I'm gonna be linking also the same thing, my solution, with the console application. So all I can do is just really utilize this and Formula Airline dot ticketing solution, and now it's linked. Now if I do .NET build, I should see both of them being built. And as you can see here, I have my Formula Airline API DLL is being built, and let me make this a bit bigger so we can see it on a single line. And I also have my Formula Airline ticket processing DLL, so that way I'm building two of my projects directly from a single solution. Perfect. So now that I have that, the next step is let me open this within Visual Studio Code. The first thing that we're going to be doing is I'm basically going to create my model for my booking. Okay, so what I can do is I'm going to open my terminal, and before I do anything, all I'm going to do is just another build here to make sure that everything is running as it should be. So .NET build succeeded for both, exactly the one that I wanted. Perfect. So now inside my formula.api, I'm going to be creating a new folder, and this folder is going to be called models. And basically here within this models folder, I'm going to be creating a new file, and it's going to be called bookings.cs, which is going to stand for the booking that I'm going to plan to create. And it's going to be a C# file, and basically I'm going to give it a namespace, and it's going to be Formula Airline API models, and then I'm going to give it a public class. I'm going to call it booking, and it's going to be a very simple class. So first of all, we need to give it an ID, and then I'm going to give it the string, let's say name, passenger name, make it as default empty, and I'm just gonna put something similar, for example string, let's say passport number, and we can also, for example, put properties. We can put from, flying from where, and we can put prop string to, like flying from where to, and lastly we can put the status, simple as that, prop integer status. So let's do a quick recap. So what I did here, basically I created my application, I created a solution, I added two applications. One of them is going to be the web API, which is going to be the producer, another one which is going to be the console, which is the consumer. And basically here what I'm doing is I'm actually taking both of these and putting them in a solution file. It doesn't really matter, it just it makes my life easier when I want to build them. It will build them both simultaneously. And basically once I did that, I just created my model, which is going to be responsible for the bookings. Because this is a sample and don't want to make this video like 2 hours or 3 hours long, we're going to be utilizing an in-memory database. If you're interested in learning how we can actually connect different types of database to our .NET application, I have a video where I actually go through the installation and the integration between Postgres and .NET. I'll link it here somewhere. You can actually watch it, or in the description down below the like button. So right now what you can do is we're going to utilizing an in-memory database, but this will work also with any types of database that we want. So now, since we already created our models, the next step for me is gonna be, before we create the controller, let's create the services. So here what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be creating a new folder called services. And the first thing that I wanna create here is an interface. And this interface is gonna basically give me one method, which is gonna be sending the message. And this service is gonna be directly linked to the RabbitMQ. And basically what we need to do here is we need to basically create an interface, create an implementation, and basically then inject it into our application. And once we do that, we're actually able to reference this wherever we want inside our application. So before we actually create any of this, we just need to install a package, which is going to be our RabbitMQ package. And the way we do that is going to be very simple. So it's going to be .NET add package, and it's going to be RabbitMQ.client. Okay, I need to go inside my formula API, and then I can run that again. Apologies. And now we can see it's being added. Perfect, let's go back. And here right now, if I come to my CSproj file, I'm able to see that I have my RabbitMQ client available for me, exactly the way I need it. On the other hand, I need to also install this in my consumer, but we'll do this when we start working on the consumer. So now inside my services folder, I need to create a new file, and I'm gonna call this iMessage producer, which is gonna be responsible for sending messages. And the reason I called it with an I, because it's an interface. So now all I need to do is just refer the namespace, and it's gonna be formulaairline.api.services, and I'm gonna create a public interface, and I'm gonna call it iMessage. Is it covering it? Nope. iMessage producer. And all I'm gonna have here is very simple. I'm gonna put a single command, which is gonna be a single method, public void, public void, if I can type, it's gonna be sending messages. And this one, because we wanna make it as generic as possible, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be making anonymous. So the object that we are receiving is gonna be of type T. And that will make it easy for us in case we want to send different types of messages. It will allow us to do that. That will be really beneficial if we're sending it to people, to different consumers. Again, it's a good practice to have right now. So all we need to do is just put it of type T, and then here I'm gonna say T, and we're gonna say, for example, the message that we want to send. As simple as that. So here what I have is an interface, and this interface is gonna be, it have only one method, and this method is gonna be responsible for sending that message. So once I have that, let's create a new file, and this is gonna call message producer. .cs, and this is gonna be the implementation of the iMessage interface. So again, same namespace. Formula API, airline.api.services is gonna be public class. Here is gonna be just simple message producer, and basically it's gonna take the iMessage producer, and we're gonna implement it. And here we can see that I am doing the implementation for my interface. So now that I have added my interface and basically I want to implement it, the first thing that I need to do is actually start implementing the connection with my RabbitMQ instance. And for me to do that, all I need to do is within this, I need to start preparing for the communication with that RabbitMQ. So in order for us to do that, all I need to do is put var factory equal new connection factory. And I need to fix those references. And basically here, a factory means that it's a place where I'm actually inputting the configuration that I need in order for me to communicate with my RabbitMQ. So I'm gonna put the address, the username, the password, and all of that. So first of all, if I check here, I have my host name, and I'm gonna put as localhost. And then I have my username and a password, so I'm gonna put username, and I'm just gonna send it as user. And I'm gonna put my password, and I'm gonna put it also as, let's say, my pass. Anything simple, for example. And basically after I do that, I need to specify the virtual host, and here I'm just gonna make it /. So basically once we have a factory, the next step is we need to specify the connection. So var connection equal factory dot create connection. And basically what we're doing here, we're actually creating a connection from the information that we have from the factory. So we think of the factory as the setup, like the different configuration that we need, and then we initiate a connection from this one. So now once we have done that, the next step is we need to specify a channel using var channel equal, and basically this one is gonna be equal to connection.createChannel create model. And basically what this will allow us, if we hover over it, let's see, it will basically allow us to create a new channel, and if case this channel is actually not there, it will create it. If it is there, it's just gonna return it and process it. So here we can see that, to be fair, I'm not really sure why it's called that. It's called a model rather than a channel, but in essence what we're doing here is we're actually connecting to RabbitMQ, telling it, okay, do you have a channel called, for example, messages or bookings or whatever we want. In case it has, it will bring it back. If not, it will create a new one and will give us a reference to it. So now that we have created the channel, the next step for us is to actually create the queue that we're going to be responsible, which we're going to be putting the messages on. So for that, we're going to put channel, and then we're going to put queue declare. And here basically we're going to be utilizing that channel to put the queue inside. And I'm going to be utilizing the bookings. I'm going to call it bookings because basically what we're doing is we're creating the bookings on it. And the only two configurations that I want to set is the durability. I'm going to say if it's durable, I'm going to say true. And the other one is it's going to be, if it's going to be the exclusive, and I'm going to say true. That's all the configuration that I'm going to be adding. And now once that is done, all I need to do is take that message from an object. I'm going to convert it from a single object, and I'm going to make it into a bytes of arrays, so I will be able to send it. And basically what I need to do is I need to serialize it to a string, and then once I serialize it, I can convert it to a byte array. So for us to do that, we're going to be utilizing the different .NET 6 libraries, and we're going to put first var JSON string equal JSON serializer, and I can fix those references, and I'm gonna put here dot serialize, and it's gonna take the message, and then all I'm gonna put here is var body equal, let's see if this is gonna work, it's gonna be encoding dot, oops, let's fix those references, dot utf8 dot, where is it, byte, see where is it, get bytes, it's gonna be from JSON string, and that's it. And now all I need to do is just basically send the message. So what I did here is I was able to take the message. I was able to create a factory for the connection, which is all the configuration. I created a connection, I connected to a channel, I created the queue that I needed, I converted my object into an array of bytes, and now all I need to do is just send it. So now all I want to do is just publish my message. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to put channel, channel dot basic publish, and let's see what it's gonna ask me for. The exchange, I'm gonna leave it as empty, or let me see the different implementation. So we can see the publication address, we have the exchange. Okay, so let us start with that. So I'm gonna leave the exchange as empty, and then I'm gonna put the routing as bookings. And then after that, it's gonna ask me, is it for the message body? So let's go down here, and we'll be able to see the body that we wanna send. And all I'm gonna say is I'm gonna send the body like this. And I'm gonna put here body equal body. Oops. So that way I'm able to tell it exactly the way I want it. And basically if we take a hover over this, we can see that it's taking the exchange rules of empty, the routing key that we need, and all of the rest are not mandatory except the body that I want to send to. So this is basically my service, and this will allow me in essence to send a message to RabbitMQ. So now I'm gonna come into my program.cs and I'm gonna attach it here. So here what I'm gonna be doing, I'm gonna put builder.services.add scoped, and I'm gonna pass the message producer. This is gonna be really important. It's gonna be message producer, and all I need to do right now is fix those references. And if I do a build, perfect. Now I'm actually able to build my application, which should be good. Now inside my controllers, I'm gonna be creating a new file. And basically the reason I'm creating a new controller here is going to be responsible to mimic the booking. So as in case I create a booking from there, it will help me to actually propagate the message once I create a booking to the different, to RabbitMQ and then to the consumer itself. So I'm just going to call this bookings controller.cs, and I'm just going to copy paste whatever we have here and then change it. That way it's faster. So instead of having it as weather forecast, we're just gonna change it to bookings. And then once that is done, we don't really need this, so we'll remove it. And we don't need this, so we also remove it. And let's close this, we don't really need it now, so that way we'll have a bit more space. And we don't need this now. So basically right now we have an empty controller with no actions, but at least we have a controller. So now what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna adding my service, gonna be private, read only, message producer, and let's fix those references here. And then let's copy this one. Okay, let's add it manually. Visual Studio Code hits again. So we're gonna say formula airline.api.services, and now we can see it here. And now all I need to do is just add this here, and instead of without the underscore, and here all I'm gonna have is underscore messages producer equal message producer. It's very simple. And once I have done all of that, my next step for me is just all I'm gonna creating is a single action, which is gonna be the post. And here I'm gonna be basically representing the creating of a booking. All I'm gonna be doing is I'm just gonna take whatever booking it exists here, I'm gonna add it to my random database, or basically in-memory database that I have, which I need to create right now. And then once I do that, I'm just gonna communicate with the service and actually send that message. So let's do this. So first of all, let's create this in-memory database. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna put, this one's gonna be the in-memory DB, and we're gonna put public, and then I'm gonna put it as static. And here all I'm gonna add to it is a read only, and it's gonna be a list of booking, the DTO that we have created, and I'm gonna just call it bookings equal new. That's it. And now if I fix those references, oh, it worked. Surprise, surprise. Okay, so now what I have to do is I just need to create that. So I'm gonna put HTTP post. So this action right now here is gonna be purely responsible for creating this action, for creating that booking. I'm gonna put public action result. I'm gonna call it creating a booking, and it's gonna take a booking. I'm just gonna call it book. Actually, let's give it a better name. New booking. And basically what I'm gonna be doing here is fairly simple. So first of all, if model state dot is valid, we're able to continue. Actually, we can make it not, if it's not valid, we'll return a bad request. In case it's valid, all we need to do is just put bookings dot add. We're gonna add the new booking, as simple as that. And now what we wanna do is utilize the message producer, and we're gonna say sending a message of type booking. And then here what we're gonna be doing is just sending the actual body, which is gonna be new booking. Oops. And we're gonna return an OK. As simple as that. So this is gonna be the main controllers. Okay, here new booking. So let's see what we did here. Basically what we did is we created a new action. We called it create booking, and we gave it a post. And basically it takes a booking, which is gonna be the model that we have created previously. We checked if it's a valid, so everything should be there. If it is a valid request, if it's not valid, sorry, we're returning a bad request. If it is valid, we're just adding it to the list that we have. And then we're actually connecting with the message producer in order for us to send this message. So let us build this just to make sure it's working. .NET build. And we can see here building succeeded, and which is really good. So now if I go to the application itself, so airline API, and I'm just gonna do .NET run. So now, right now it will not send a message, but we're able, if it's all successful, or let me add if it actually works, we'll be able to actually add the message, but it's gonna fail when we're actually trying to send the message. So now let's open our web browser. Let's open Firefox. Let's bring it here. And what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna put localhost, and I think it is, let's see what the port, 5057. So let's add that, 5057 / swagger / index.html. Yes, I accept. Perfect. Why can't I see this? Okay, see if there's any error. Nope. So HTTPS swagger. Oh, I forgot the I in index.html. Okay, perfect. Now I can see my new controller bookings, and I can see that's actually taking, this is the object. So if I click on try it out, now this should fail. It should add it, but it should fail on the actual sending. So passport number 123 from, let's say, Beirut to, let's say, Dubai, and status equal 1. And if I click on execute, it should give me an error, which is exactly the thing that I should expected on where it's not able to reach RabbitMQ. Let me zoom in to see, make it a bit easier. Let me make this a bit bigger. See if this is fine. Okay. So if we see here that it's not able to connect to RabbitMQ because there's no instance of RabbitMQ available for us, which is exactly the outcome that we wanted. Because right now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be actually creating a Docker Compose file, and basically this Docker Compose file is going to be responsible for pulling in a version of RabbitMQ. It's going to be responsible for actually initiate it, do the basic configuration, the username and the password, and it's going to make sure that it is running. And once we've done that, we're actually able to have a full version of RabbitMQ running locally, and our application will be able to connect to it. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, let me stop this. And what I'm going to be doing here is inside this root folder that I have, all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to creating a new file, and this file is going to be called docker-compose.yaml. Okay, so before we do all of that, you need to download Docker to your machine to make sure that you are able to do that. So let's go back to my web browser. And here, if you want to find Docker, all you need to go is Docker download, inject all, and basically, let's see, get Docker. And here, for example, you will be able to choose whatever Docker instance you want based on your own machine. So if you have Windows, you'll download Windows. You have Mac, you download Mac, Linux, so on and so forth. So just make sure you download it and you install it. Excuse me. Once you download it and install, you should be able to see like a whale sign. And if you open it up, let's see, open the dashboard, you will be able to actually see it's running as it should be, because it has the green logo that the engine is running correctly. So that makes sure that you have that. So once you have downloaded Docker, you're actually able to follow, but make sure you download it first. So the first thing that we need to do in order for us to, let's go back here to make sure we are following this. Okay, so first thing we need to do when it comes to our Docker compose file is we need to specify the version. So we're gonna put version, and we're gonna be utilizing version 3.8. And the first thing we need to do is we need to initialize the services. So we're gonna put services. And the first service, which is the only service right now, is gonna be RabbitMQ. And something that you need to pay attention to here is the spacing within the YAML file or the Docker compose file is really important. If we messed up the spacing, it will not be recognized. And this is something that we really need to pay attention to. Spacing is crucial. We need to pay attention closely to the spacing of our YAML file. So now once we specify the name of the service, the next step is we need to specify the container name. With the container name, we're gonna call it as simple as RabbitMQ. And then once we specify the container name, we need to specify which image we want to utilize. So in order for you to find the right image, let me go back to my browser. And here what we can do is you can go to Google, just type Docker image RabbitMQ. And here we can see that it automatically, the first one was to, let's see if you are able to see that properly. It's a bit small. Okay, let's zoom in. So once you go directly to the Docker Hub instance and you look for Docker for RabbitMQ, you'll be able to see that all of the different versions of RabbitMQ that you can utilize, all of them. And basically you can see they have a quick reference on the different architecture that is supported. You will be able also to see like how to use it, how to be able to run it. It will give you basically a lot of good information on how you can actually get started and basically how you can actually start implementing all of the configuration that you need to have in order for you to have a RabbitMQ instance available on your machine. So what I did here is I'm just gonna utilize the this version right here, which is gonna be the RabbitMQ 3.8 management, because the management here in essence, it will allow me to have a GUI, graphical web interface, which is a graphical user interface, which is basically gonna allow me to actually monitor my messages, see that if the messages has been sent, see if a message has been consumed, see a graph of all of my incoming and outgoing messages. All of that is gonna be available for me directly through this management tool. So that's why I want to install it and utilize this version of my RabbitMQ. So in order for me to do that, so it's gonna be here, let's take this RabbitMQ management, and here we're gonna be specifying the image and see if we mess up the spacing, it's not happy. And once I do that, all I'm gonna say is I want the Alpine version, which is the smallest one. And once I specify the image, I want to specify the environment, and inside my environment I need to specify my username and a password in order for me to configure my instance. And here I'm just gonna put RabbitMQ, and I'm gonna give it, let me copy this because it's very it's much more easier. Any typo, it's gonna basically break it down, so I can just put it here like this. So the first one is RabbitMQ default underscore user. It's gonna basically give it my user. Let me see what did I give it as a user here. User my pass. Let me update it. So this one needs to be user, and here it's gonna be my pass. Okay, so now I have specified the RabbitMQ default user and default password. The next step is I need to specify the ports, which is gonna be allow me to connect to it. And here I need to specify 2 ports. So the first port is for actually the instance of RabbitMQ, which is going to be running in the background. And the second one is for my web interface, which is going to be responsible for me to actually monitoring my RabbitMQ instance. And here we can, and for this we need to specify 2 ports as I mentioned. So the first one is going to be we're gonna map the default port, which is gonna be the 5678 no 5672 to 5672, and for the web interface it's gonna be 15672 15672. And here what I'm gonna do is just gonna add the hash. I'm just gonna say here web interface. I'm gonna add a hash. I'm just gonna say RabbitMQ instance. So here we can see that the first one is gonna allow us to connect directly with the instance. The second one is gonna allow us to connect with that web interface. So if I save this right now, so let's see how we can run it. I'm gonna open my terminal, and all I need to put inside my terminal, let's see ls. So here I can see that I have my Docker Compose file available for me. In order for me to run it, I'm just gonna put docker-compose, docker-compose up. It means that I'm actually trying to run my Docker Compose. And if I click on enter, we can see that it's pulling the latest version of my RabbitMQ. It's downloading it on my machine. If you don't really know how Docker works, I have a different video where I go through the different implementation of Docker, how it works in the background, what's the process that it takes. But in essence, it checks locally on my machine if I have Docker RabbitMQ installed, available. If it is available, it uses it. Not, it connects to Docker Hub and it gets it from there. And now while we're speaking, we can see that my RabbitMQ instance is running. If I go up, I can see, let me go to find the logs where it shows it's setting up my username and a password. So here, let's see where it is. So here we can see it's running. So here we can see it downloaded it. It started to configure itself. It's working on the monitoring. Perfect, it's running, and it tells me that my web management is available. So right now, if I go back to my web browser, let's go back and let's go to my local instance. So localhost, and it was 15672. As you can see here, directly without me doing anything or any extra configuration, I got a login page requesting for my username and a password in order for me to log in. So if I remember correctly, it was user and my pass. So let's put it here as user and my pass. And if I put on login, we can see it directly took me to the login page of my RabbitMQ. And all of this is available out of the box. I did not create any of this. And we can see here that it says there's no information on the latest messages because nothing has been sent yet. We can see here that the nodes which is available, the connections, the channels which has been available. We can see this once we start creating and running. And here we can see the different queues that we have, so on and so forth. So let us go to our application here, and I'm just gonna basically do a .NET run to run my application. And now all I'm gonna be doing is going back to my web browser, and is here, instead of actually, where is my Swagger? Instead, I'm gonna resend this object again. So execute, and we can see here I got a 200. And now if I go directly to my RabbitMQ, we can see here that this changed. So we can see here that I got, there is a message which has been sent, and we can see we have a total of 1. And we can see that a message has been received on my queue. And if I go on queues, we can see that I have my booking queue which has been added. If I click on it, I can see all of the information which is available for me here, which is the number of messages, when it has been sent, so on and so forth. I can see that if I have any consumers, I can see, for example, the size of the message, the body, and all of that. So here, for example, it's still processing this. So let me see how this will happen, right? How we can actually start consuming all of that. So all I need to do is to stop this, and let's do a clear, and let's open another terminal here, and I'm gonna actually go to my let's go to my consumer, which is gonna be the formula. And then, no, it's gonna be called ticketing processing. So right now, if I do .NET build inside of this, it should be empty and fine. So now if I open my program.cs, and I should be able to, let's open it up. Sorry, I should open my program.cs, this one, we can see it's completely empty. Let me see if this is looking fine. Perfect. So all I need to do right here is, let me update this so I'm actually able to process the queue which is coming in. So I'm gonna say here, welcome to the ticketing service, for example. I need to basically have the same factory as I did before in order for me to start processing it. Oh, before we do that, I need to install my NuGet package. So let's install this NuGet package. So it's gonna be .NET add package RabbitMQ. I think that was it. Let me RabbitMQ.client, I think. Client. Okay, perfect. So right now if I click on my CS Proj, I'll be able to see it there. Perfect. So now let's come here and let me add the factory. So it's gonna be var factory equal new, I think connection factory fac without the O. Oops. Okay, let's fix those references. And now this one is basically gonna ask me to fill in the same information. So all I'm gonna be doing is I'm just gonna copy paste whatever I have put in the message producer, which is this one, all of these up to this point, instead of me typing it all over again. So let's come back here. Where is it? Let's close this. Let me just paste this here. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking the same configuration that I have done before, instead of me trying to retype them again. So localhost again, user, my path, same virtual host, and then basically I'm creating a connection, I'm checking for a channel, and I'm saying if you don't have a channel which is called booking, create it. If not, we can reutilize it. So once we have done all of that, the next step for us, so all we need to do is just put var consumer equal new eventing basic consumer IRCAS. See if we need to fix those reference. Yeah. And then from here I need to pass the channel that we have created. And then once that is done, so now that I have that, all I need to do is just basically have my consumer to start receiving, and I'm gonna be utilizing basically an incremental way. So whatever a message is coming in, it will basically allow to receive multiple messages simultaneously. And the way we do that is pretty straightforward. So put consumer dot received plus equal, and then we're gonna specify here the arguments. So we're gonna be having like a anonymous function, and this anonymous function is gonna be allowing us to actually take the event, and the arguments, and then basically build from there. And I'm gonna specify here model, and I'm gonna say event args. And once that's done, all I can do here, for example, is I can put var, oops, I forgot the arrows. So I can put here var body equal event args dot body dot, oops, to array. And then here what I'm doing is basically I'm getting here my byte arrays that I have, which is because the body is a type byte arrays. And then once I have done that, I need to convert this byte arrays into text. So I'm gonna see here var message equal encoding. Let's fix this. Dot UTF-8 dot where is it? Get string, where is it? Let me type it. Get string, okay, and just put body. And now all I can say is console.writeLine. I can just put message Okay, let me put string concatenation. A message has been received, and I can put the body of the message here, and the ticket, or we can say ticket processing for, okay, new ticket processing is initiated, something like that, and we pass the message. So once I've done all of that, and basically I am actually consuming my message, let's put a semicolon at the end. Once I did all of that, I'm actually consuming the messages that has been sent to me. The last thing is I need to do is just I need to stop the application to continue further. So I'm gonna put first of all channel dot basic consume. Where is it? Basic consume, and let's see what it's expecting. And we can see it's expecting the queue name, the autolock, the consumer tag, and let's see the different implementations. String autolock. Okay, I think that should be fine. Is this clear here? Okay. Yeah, the only reason is I'm just changing I changed the screen locations and the configuration of it, so that's why I'm a bit worried about how OBS is actually recording the screen. Apologies. So what we can do here is I can just specify the queue that I have, which is, it was called booking, so let's take this. And then once I have this here, all I need to do is I'm gonna put the AutoHawk for to true, and then it's this question of the consumer tag, which was also booking, I think. Let me double check. The consumer tag, I think, is the one that we created here. Oh yes, the consumers, we call it consumer. And that should be it. And lastly, all I'm gonna put is console.read key, so we can stop the application from keep on running. So very simple. Well, the implementation is quite simple. So all we did is we created a connection factory. Once we created the connection factory, we are able to actually get the information that we create a connection, make sure that the model is there. Then we created a consumer. We configured the consumer to connect to the right queue that we want, and basically read those messages. Once it's actually started reading those messages, we just decoded the body, which is gonna be of byte array. We converted it into a string, and then we created a simple sentence which is popping out the message out on the screen, and that's it basically. So now once we have done all of that, let's just do .NET build, and right now let's see if it's building. Let me make this bigger. So build succeeded. So now, if basically all I need to do is just run it, if I put .NET run, we should be able to see that my message is appearing. So .NET run, so we can see that the first message that I sent, it should appear here. Let's see. Let's see. Let me run the other ones as well. So this one here, let's run this as well. This is running, and here we can see that this is running as well. Okay, it says user is not authenticated. Why? Okay, I think I put here. Okay, let's see. Let me try to send a different message. So let's go back to my web browser and just send the message. We got a 200. If I come here, we should be able to see that message popping up. We can see that there's a message incoming, and now if I go here, we should be able to see that for this passenger, passenger with the ID 2 and Muhammad Lawan from Beirut to Dubai, has been received by my ticketing service. So right now, let's go back to my web browser and let's see that this information. So let's compare them. Is it clear? Again, sorry for this. Is it clear? Yes, it should be. Let me zoom a bit more. So a bit more, okay. So here we can see the body ID2, Muhammad Lawand, passport 123 from Beirut to Dubai. So now let's do a quick summary of what we have covered today. In essence, today what we were able to do, we have discussed what is RabbitMQ and how we can actually, what are the terminologies and the different implementation that we can do there. And then we created an application, which is a web API, which is responsible for sending out messages, which is going to be the producer. Then we created a console application, which is going to be the consumer and responsible for receiving those messages. And I hope that this video was helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe if you do. If it was, it will really help the channel. As well, if you'd like to have access to the source code, please consider supporting me on Patreon. As well, if you have any questions or if you have any ideas of anything else you would like me to implement regarding RabbitMQ, please let me know, and we'll basically create another series on this specifically regarding the different implementation that we can have there. I hope this video was helpful, and have a great day.